presenting?
There's, when a presentation is, yes.
Okay.
And that too, I have to get up and do. Yes,
Does Kyle Health want to speak?
he did not request to.
Still 5:59.
Oh, there's Kyle.
Time for a drink. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to bring the September 9th City Council meeting to order. I have a lot of people in the crowd tonight. Welcome to our new City Hall. We're going to begin with the roll call. Jenny?
Sarchet?
Here.
Savage?
Here.
Walters?
Here.
Vogel? Here. Otis?
Here.
And then we will go to item number 3, which is approval of agenda. I'll ask for a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Vogel? Yes. Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
So we'll move on to item number 4 then, our first public hearing. It's time to close the regular meeting and open the continuation of the public meeting on the proposed rezoning of property described as Outlet B, Johnson Plat 1, to be known as Allure at Saylorville. Jenny, when was the notice published?
August 2nd?
Have we had any written comments received for or against the proposed rezoning?
Yes, sir. I've received 41 comments.
Okay, we'll be getting to comments later, I'm sure. At this time, we'd like to have staff provide a report. Travis, that's you.
Travis Thornburg, City Engineer, Snyder and Associates, 2727 Southwest Snyder Boulevard, Ankeny, Iowa. For council's consideration tonight are 4 rezoning petitions, taking an existing A1 lot and splitting it into 4 separate zoning districts, 2.06 acres from A1 to C2, 17.86 acres from A1 to R3, 6.25 acres from A1 to C2, and 3.44 acres from A1 to R2A. Each of these petitions for rezoning have consent within the 250-foot buffer within the city of Polk City's incorporated limits in excess of 70% in accordance with Polk City Municipal Code. The total area of this parcel is 29.61 acres, and the developer is Timbercrest Homes LLC. The proposed rezonings are in general conformance with the future land use plan contained within the Polk City Comprehensive Plan. There is a comprehensive plan amendment for your consideration tonight. Staff considers that minor in nature, as the general intent of a mixture of high-density residential and commercial uses on this property are maintained. The shapes and sizes of those parcels vary slightly. This change, or the current future land use plan, reflects a change that the council made in June of 2022. Prior to that, it was single-family residential, low-density homes, and the council did decide in June of 2022 to move that to a mixture of high-density and commercial uses. The petitions, as they appear in the packet, addressed all of staff's review comments. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the proposed comprehensive plan and the proposed rezonings. In addition to what was included in the packet last time, staff prepared a memo for City Council's use and consideration, essentially laying out several topics that we believe are pertinent to the development and future review of this plat, so that council understands at what point in the process some of those items take place. Included in those is a traffic impact study, which the developer will be required to commission prior to approval of the preliminary plat. The concept plan as included in the city council packet was included for informational and referential purposes only. That any approval of a rezoning or a comprehensive plan amendment does not necessarily constitute approval of that concept plan until a preliminary plat has been approved. A stormwater management and detention concept will be required at the preliminary plat stage. The details of that plan will then be fleshed out as each property submits a site plan and is developed as part of the site plan process. The sanitary sewer has been deemed accessible for this parcel. The developer and staff will have to negotiate the exact details of where that connection happens, the cost sharing associated with those items, and the schedule of that construction. But the southeast trunk sewer that Snyder and Associates completed did prove feasible gravity sewer for this property. I briefly mentioned that stormwater would be handled at the site plan stage in more detail. Also at the site plan stage, we'll look at parking lots, buildings, lighting layouts, and all of the other items that are included in both the zoning ordinances and the site plan ordinances in Polk City. That would include lighting levels, screening, buffers, headlight screening, open space plantings, required trees, all those sorts of things. And then, as I mentioned, the buffers and screenings would be covered at that time as well. The developer is present tonight and plans and will be making a presentation following public comment for council to ask them any questions or garner any additional information from the developer at that time.
Okay, thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
So we'll move on then. I just have something here to read. It's tonight's public hearing. A little bit of this is some of what Travis already said. This is a public hearing regarding a rezoning matter for the Allure at Saylorville. It's a continuation of the public hearing from August 12th. Rezoning is the first step in the developer's process. It requires approval by ordinance, and there are 3 separate readings of the ordinance before it is adopted. If the rezoning is approved, the next step for the developer is to submit a site plan or preliminary plat for the project. That's the point at which the city will know the specifics of the proposed project as well and can determine all the things that a developer will have to address to obtain the city's approval. Most of the concerns we've heard have been those that are related to site plan related items. Those items can't be specifically known, reviewed, or addressed until the city receives a site plan from the developer, which is on down the road. Due to the number of people who may wish to speak during this public hearing, and we invite you to speak, we're happy to listen to you. We have some rules, however, for the evening. Since this is a continued public hearing from August 12th, each speaker's comments will be limited to 5 minutes, and our city clerk, Jenny, will keep the time for us. Oftentimes, even last week, people did not fill their 5 minutes, and you do not have to feel obligated to fill your 5 minutes, but you do have 5 minutes. If you already provided comments at the August 12th public hearing, I asked you not speak again unless you have new information. I also ask if you speak that you do not duplicate statements already made by others during the public hearing. If we've received written comments from you and you wish to speak, your comments should be limited to something new that was not included in your written statement or your comments last time. Jenny does an excellent job of recording who speaks from the podium. That's why we ask people to speak from the podium and give us their name and their address. She also does a great job of writing down what people had to say. So you can feel confident that your comments were recorded by Jenny last time, and you don't need to repeat those comments. Again, if you're planning to speak again and you spoke last time, we would like you to talk on new issues, not issues you've already talked about. So once again, we ask if you're going to speak that you come to the podium, give your name and address, and if you live in the city limits of Polk City, and if you have previously provided comments on this rezoning matter. With all that in mind, if anyone is present who wishes to be heard for or against the proposed rezoning, please come to the podium, and again, your name, address, and if you live within the city limits. So I will just raise a hand, how many people want to speak? Okay, we've got, so last time people raised their hands and then we had a whole bunch more speak, so that's okay. Why don't we just start with the first hand that went up, and that's the lady in the green.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and residents of Polk City. My name is Sophia Mendoza. I live at 401 South 3rd Street. I am within city limits. I can see the beautiful, beautiful new city hall that we just got. And this is my first time speaking. Technically, I have lived in Polk City since 2015. I was about 13 years old when we moved here, but prior to this, I lived in a townhouse near Merle Hay. My mother, who was a single mother of 2 children, struggled to stay afloat as we lived below the poverty line. She put herself through school and worked day and night to provide for our family, and she eventually remarried and had 2 additional children. And then both of my parents worked tirelessly to get us to a bigger home with a safer environment. Polk City provided this for my family and I. I eventually graduated from high school in 2020 during some trying times, and soon thereafter moved out of my parents' house in Polk City for college. I worked hard to put myself through nursing school and to buy my first home by the age of 20. I knew there was key factors that I had to consider when I began my search for my first home, and my primary considerations included location, price, and safety for myself as a young woman. I looked at many homes on the east, north, and south sides of Des Moines that were in my price range. These homes were in much better condition and much more aesthetically pleasing to the eye than my humble abode off 3rd Street. All of them were much closer to my work at Mercy One Hospital, where I currently work as an intensive care nurse, and I ultimately chose my home in Polk City as I knew it would fulfill all of my requirements and provide me with a wonderful community that I knew I could rest at night knowing I was in a good neighborhood. I have wonderful neighbors, Frank and Linda, who have been longtime residents of Polk City and have become good friends of mine. I know that when I'm out of town or at work, that my house will be well watched over by not only my neighbors, but the local police as well. We have vigilant police officers that are not currently overextended and do an excellent job of keeping the peace within our town. I oppose this high-density housing because there is a potential for an increase in serious crime. In an area that is surrounded by woods and a low density of police officers, the chances for higher rates of robbery, aggravated assault, rape, and violent crimes increase with a high-density population. Not only that, but this highway or this area does not have the capacity to support increase for population, as Highway 415 is already booming as it is. We have seen in our other surrounding high-traffic roads multiple accidents, some of them fatal, and to add up to upward of 1,000 people on such a busy road would be irresponsible and not cohesive with the current road infrastructure. I'm sure we have all seen the bumper-to-bumper road traffic in the morning time going to work. Lastly, I would like to emphasize the importance of preserving our wildlife and public attractions. To add such a development would deter many people from enjoying the camping grounds, beautiful wildflower meadows, lake shores, dense forests, and wildlife. I understand that Polk City is a growing town. However, this specific location is not an ideal place to build a high-density development. I ask that you please vote no on this high-density development, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
So if I didn't say it before, I would just add that in order to keep decorum at this meeting and to ensure the city council can hear all the public comments, I'm going to ask that people refrain from applause after everyone comes up and speaks, or use any other demonstrations such as interrupting someone else speaking, giving applause, or booing someone else's comments. I don't think we need any of that in our chamber. So once again, I'm going to ask that you refrain from clapping after people give their comments. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment?
Was the applause within the 5 minutes?
Pardon me?
I was asking, was the applause within the 5 minutes of time?
Well, really, that's regardless. Do you have a comment that you'd like to make?
You just asked if I had a comment. That was my question. Was the applause within her 5 minutes of allotted time?
No.
Oh, so she said that.
So do you have a comment?
That was my comment.
Oh, okay, so you're not coming to the podium? Okay, anyone else?
I'm not going to come to the podium.
Anyone else? Sure, come on up. Let us know if you've spoken before, your name, your address.
Yes, I spoke at another, one other time. My name is Linda Clausen, and I live at 1212 Bel Air Road. And thank you, Mayor Karsten and the rest of the city council everyone else for listening to my comments. That is a tough act to follow. She had her whole thing planned out. I just recently became aware of this situation driving down the highway and saw the sign up there. And I just had no clue as to what was going on in that plot. I don't follow, everything that goes on within the city council. Obviously, you had something in the pipe works going on. I'm here now since 2022. And that's probably my fault. I should become more involved and see what's going on in the, within our city here. But, I just recently found out too that the people that live adjacent to this proposed property have no ability to even speak out in opposition to this. And to me, that is just simply wrong. That's not being a good neighbor to the people of the Ballard Estates that live there. I recently came to a city council meeting when the nursing home was being sold to On With Life, and they wanted to rezone part of the land there to, because it was a private property, and that land abutted my land. And the people that from On With Life came around to all of us in the neighborhood, had 51% of us sign that we could, we agreed with this. They said they would be a good neighbor, and I had questions, about expansion and all that kind of stuff, and my questions were answered, and then so I felt comfortable going ahead with that proposal. But these people that live right next door, I just recently met some people that, bought the property and built a house, brand new house there, and this was before this thing went into effect in 2022, but they had no idea what was going on. You didn't come to them and say, hey, we're planning on, rezoning this so we can build this high density property right next to where you are building a brand new home. And to me, that is not being a good neighbor. And that's not how I feel Polk City should be. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think I see a hand.
Hello, City Council and Mayor and the rest of the Polk City people. My name is Lorena Martin. I live at 4512 Northwest 98th Avenue. I do live in the Ballard Estates area. I do understand that I am not technically part of Polk City as an actual resident. However, my address is Polk City. I do flourish within Polk City. I go to restaurants and everything within town. When I purchased my house in 2012, I absolutely loved the Ballard Estates area. Across the street from me was a cornfield. Every other year was a soybean field. We watched the nature, the wildlife, everyone go through. We had the beach traffic, but it was 3 months out of the year, and they were pretty responsible and pretty respectable to us. A couple years later, we had a neighborhood across the street from us move in. It is a beautiful neighborhood. We actually had the construction company come up to us and ask us our opinion on how they wanted how that development would be set up. This new development that is being planned, I am perfectly fine with it being developed as a low-density residential area. I foresaw this coming when I moved in 2012. I just don't understand how or why we would want to put that many people in such a restricted area, coming on and off of 415, bothering the campgrounds. And I just don't see how the 415 nor the mile-long bridge are going to be able to accommodate this much traffic that is going to be brought in due to the fact that we're going to have 7 or 8 apartment complexes along with convenience stores or whatever else is going to be going in those commercial lots. I really do request and do hope that that you guys within Polk City will listen to us out there who live out there. We don't want to see commercial. We want to enjoy what we moved out there for. You guys would not want to look out your front door and see a convenience store. I definitely don't want to walk outside and see a convenience store or too much traffic or the high increase in poverty and crime that we're going to be seeing out there. This is our backyard just as much as it is yours. And I really do hope that you would listen to what we have to say in regards to this, because we may not have a vote, but we do enjoy the part of Polk City that we can. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure.
Hello, Stacy Allen. I'm a Polk City resident, 941 Breakwater Place, but I'm also the executive director of Polk City's Chamber and Economic Development, 101 East Bridge Road. I'm here to express my support for the rezoning of Allure at Saylorville. I don't think it's just another project. I think it's very important to Polk City. It's an important step towards building a Polk City that really works for everyone. Denying this rezoning could send a potential message to investors that we're resistant to growth. I approach this with a unique perspective. I grew up in Polk City, moved away from 2001 to 2016, I think is when I moved back here. However, my parents built their house in 1979. When they built their house on Phillips Street, it was a dead-end road surrounded by trees and cornfields. Now that view is much different. There are townhouses that are rentals, and my dead-end road is Parker Boulevard now, it connects. So I've seen a ton of growth in Polk City, and I think that it's hard to see change at first, but it's been so good for our community. I can really empathize and fully understand the concerns of those near the development. I myself live in a development where I can see Quick Star from my back deck. I didn't want to see Quick Star at first, but you know what? I go there probably 6 out of 7 days a week. So I love Quick Star. Accessible housing is a critical need in our community. Right now, there are 39 active listings for homes, and those range, there's 2 that are in the $200,000 range, 8 in the $300,000 range, 12 in the $400,000 range, and the remaining 17 are from $513,000 to $1.1 million. We have 81 businesses in town that have storefronts or commercial space that employ more than one person. The majority of those employees are not living in Polk City, and it's because of our housing is very, very expensive to live here. With this rezoning, having apartment buildings and extra commercial space would be a benefit for the businesses that are currently here, but it would also help those businesses that are wanting to come to town see that we can provide a workforce for those commercial developments. Commercial development is essential to ease the tax burden on our residents. With everything that's slated to be built in Polk City, we'll have over 1,000 new houses coming anyway. In order for us to be able to keep our taxes at a place where people are happy and comfortable, the more commercial developments that we have, the better that will be for everybody. I've spoken with developers and businesses, including retailers and some fast food chains that are eager to expand here. So showing them that we are able to support a workforce would be great. Our police are well-trained. That specific area right there would be easily backed up by Ankeny and the Polk County Sheriff's Department, since we're right there. So I don't think that crime is something that would be a major concern, just in my opinion, for one, but also because once we do this too, this will help us have more money to provide more policing and then also the infrastructure to change the roads. So in conclusion, I'm urging the council to consider a broader future for our town by supporting the rezoning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure.
Hi, my name is Margaret Spikes. I'm at 9746 Northwest 47th Court, Ballard Estates. I spoke the last time, but I do have a comment and a question. So without knowing the overall plans, and she made a good point about attracting commercial folks and expanding the residential. It feels like because of the way 415 is and the amount of neighborhoods that we've seen increase in the last 20 years, it feels like the traffic is extra heavy. It feels like north and northwest of town that, because there's not nearly as much traffic there, those might be candidates for the higher intensity housing as well. I know that some of the property out there has been sold for a lot of money, but just really higher individual homes or very small number of homes for larger pieces of property. So without knowing the planning for that particular area, north and east of town, it feels like there are other candidates for expansion besides where you're speaking of. That was my comment. And I had a question about the gentleman that was talking about the sewer and the for the new area. Did I understand that correctly? And if so, I just wanted to hear a little bit more about what you're looking at for the plans for that particular neighborhood. Because my understanding was that because of the dam between Polk City and that particular neighborhood, I was unclear about how the sewage could be, the system from Polk City could be brought out. I didn't know if that is something that has to be done by Ankeny or another, so that's my question, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Travis, note that, and we can come back to that later on. Anybody else wish to speak? Laramie, is this on Allure?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll speak on both, actually.
Okay. That's
Not
fine.
here. This one will be just for Allure. Laramie Sanquist, 1101 Tradition Drive, here in town. I look at this as a similar situation that we ran into the TCI neighborhood just a couple years back. We had a high-density look at what we were looking at in that area. We had some houses that were being proposed. Some in the neighborhood didn't like it. We talked about it. We gave up the same things that we're hearing here. There's going to be crime. There's going to be upkeep issues. There's going to be all this things that happen when you put row houses in these areas that are interacting with other single-family homes. What we found out, these homes went in, the folks are there. I don't know how many there are. I think there's 30-plus different homes in that small little area. I'm talking about off Boulder Point and Broadway there. And we stirred up a lot of commotion for no reason. Right. The people that are there, I see them walk in our neighborhood every day. They're very good people. They're walking their dogs. They're pushing their kid in strollers. They're just like any one of us. They're very good people in this community. And we were all put into a tizzy for no good reason at all. So now I'm not trying to say that this is equivalent. I know it's high density, but I want to also urge some calm. That people do know how to act as civilized citizens in a community. I have full respect of the council, all of our law enforcement community, and everyone else who has supported us from the beginning and will continue to support us after this. I agree, 415 is an absolute disaster. Hopefully this development will help us clean up 415 and make it a safer roadway, because I think we all know that has to get changed. So I think as a council, we just have to decide, are we a rural community or are we an urban community? Of course, Ankeny now is one of the biggest communities in the state. We know Grimes is expanding and we're stuck right in the middle of it. If we think this property isn't going to get developed at some point, I think we're kidding ourselves. This property has to get developed. We need the economic development in this town and we need the opportunity for folks. So with that, I support this. And I hope you guys also will support this. And one ask that I would have, I'm assuming the sign is on private property. I'm assuming whoever put the sign up is maybe in attendance tonight. We've all stood up here and agreed that 415 is an absolute disaster of a road to drive on, specifically in the area where that sign is. Can we please take the sign down and use this decorum to share our thoughts of what we want to do instead of causing an increased distraction on a road we all agree is already dangerous? Take the sign down, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Sure, come forward.
Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is John Roseman. I live at 10276 Northwest 38th Street in Polk City. It is not in Polk City proper. It would be right across the 415 at that interchange where the sign is. And in metropolitan communities, counties like Polk County, the amount of public spaces and opportunities to enjoy public spaces are very limited. It's a rare treasure in a metropolitan area like this. That particular area we're talking about is rich with trails, campgrounds, places that people can enjoy publicly. And it's nestled right between Cherry Glen Campground and Prairie Flower Campground. And I question of whether high-density residential housing and commercial is really in the spirit of what all of us seek, especially people that live in that area, what we seek in a community. We want opportunities to enjoy public spaces, places to be able to take our kids. And opportunities for that are becoming more and more limited. So we're talking about an area that it's already dangerous. There's a high amount of traffic there. I would question whether bringing more business and high-density housing is going to solve any of those questions. It's been really tough to see this proposal move forward because I think the people that live in that community that is impacted have felt like that we have not had an opportunity to really be vocal about our concerns for the use of this land. And my concern is that now that we do have this opportunity, it's too late in the process and it's a foregone conclusion. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and I hope there's more opportunities to hear from the people that are impacted and live in that community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sure, come forward.
Hi, I'm Mary Buckland, 4293 Northwest 98th Avenue. I did speak at the last meeting too, but I'll try not to touch on those points again. To start, since the last meeting, the Oak Grove Beach has opened up. With that, it's kind of reminded me, even not 415, but the roads going down there. It's a great place. People love to show off their car. I have a nice car too sometimes. I like to show off there. But again, it's very busy. It's brought back litter. It's also brought back a lot of broken glass on the beach because even when the arms were down, when the beach was closed, I was sneaking down there with my dogs. So that does give credence to the fact we draw more people to this area. Oak Grove Beach has had a history of some misdeeds. I think we'll see that continue with higher density of people. So again, I'm asking to reconsider approving the high density change to the rezoning. In addition, I just want to add, this time since the last meeting, I've thought about it at quite a bit of length, trying to prepare myself, think of the pros, the cons. I grew up in the cheapest rental in a small town of Maxwell. We used to play Polk City in sports. You guys were the cool, rich school district, but you were 2A then. And really liked it then. Now I get to kind of live here, not in city limits, unfortunately. But the perk I had that was critical for living in these rentals is we couldn't afford gas a lot, but all the streets around me were walkable 25-mile-per-hour streets. I wasn't near any of the 55-mile-per-hour highways at all. And I think it would be very dangerous if we put a lot of children anywhere near, especially potentially, lower income children. So I would love to find a solution where we can have a more diverse community. I highly question if that's the best area for it. So again, I really suggest pausing on this rezoning until much more thought is put forward in that. And then lastly, being in that limbo where I'm right on the block next to this development, I have a concern that we've felt out of the loop on this whole thing happening because we're not in Polk City limits. And so I'm not so much in a tizzy about the development, but there's concerns if there are issues down the road, are we just gonna be wiped away because we're not in city limits again? And that's the most terrifying thing is we don't have that support system we would if we were in city limits. So it's not so much the fear of the development, it's the fear of what's our fallback after it's developed. And so it's kind of a mitigating risk position to take. So I would urge you to pause on the rezoning. I think more planning would be a great idea. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh.
Hi, my name is Jared Peterson. Address is 4196 Northwest 102nd Place, Polk City, Iowa, outside of city limits. Did speak at the last one. Couple points. I did take some takeaways with other people. We did reach out to the county about the highway. They point blank said they're aware of major issues and they don't know how to solve it. So just want to do diligence on that. Other thing is we did have some concerns too about if that was going to be in Polk City, where do the kids go? Did find it very interesting that even talking to some of the Ankeny School Board, it was kind of new to them that that was being developed. We sent some messages to people on the council and got direction, and basically where it landed was, sounds like the kids in that community, even though it will be Polk City, and you guys get the tax revenue for that, but the kids will still go to Ankeny. So I would encourage you guys, if it's something that you want to continue and move forward and it to be part of Polk City, to make it part of Polk City. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sure, come on up.
Brad Loney. I live at 10357 Northwest 42nd Street in the North Bay subdivision, just across the highway from this proposed project. Two things. I don't like to public speak, so I'll keep it brief. In reference to the sign being on the highway, I could have only hoped that there would have been a sign there 2 years ago, as I see everywhere else when they're planning on rezoning something, letting people in the area know that that is coming. So we could have gotten involved 2 years prior. I think I can speak for most of us when I say we were all very shocked that this had moved so far down the road before we became aware of it. So I think I might be speaking for more than just myself to say that we weren't aware, and that's why we became active so late in the game. And the second thing that I would say is that I'm not an engineer and I'm not a city councilman, so I may get this terminology wrong, but there is the letter of the law or the ordinance, and there is the spirit of the ordinance or the law. And when somebody referenced that those that lived within 250 feet didn't have a say-so when it came to the percentage to meet the requirements, it's quite interesting when you look at the map how they sectioned out that piece of land, virtually making everybody's voice in almost every direction irrelevant. Because when you only annex that land and you're not a resident, how do you have a voice? So when you say that it met the requirement of 70-some%, take a look at the map and see who came up with that 70%. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Linda, sure, come on up.
My name is Fran Ledding. I live in Ankeny in the Grove, 5501 Northwest 17th. We can see right over there across the cornfield where you folks want to build this development. There was an accident last week on the highway where somebody rear-ended right out there where they want to put in 18th Street, eventually punching it out through Ankeny to the highway. That area is just not set up for high-density housing. You have something really special with all the campgrounds and the public areas over there, and you want to throw in a bunch of apartments like over in Grimes. Why do you want to be like Grimes? I just don't understand it. If you were putting this over by TPC, I would imagine it would be shut down immediately. And I just feel like you're just ramming it down our throat. Polk City is 5 miles away from where you want to do this development. And I just don't think you're being fair at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sure.
My name is Elizabeth Sunchevich. I spoke at the last meeting. I live at 9723 Northwest 45th Court. I am not in city limits. I was born and raised in a small town in Iowa. You probably all know the area, Spirit Lake, Okoboji area in Northwest Iowa.
I watched this area as I grew up through the 80s and 90s to present day, watching it explode with growth. Spirit Lake and Okoboji were known to have the most beautiful and clean lakes in Iowa. Unfortunately, irresponsible overdevelopment of the land surrounding the lakes dramatically affected the health and vitality of our lakes up there and other waterways throughout the area as well. The Iowa Great Lakes now is fighting poor water quality like never before. Saylorville Lake already struggles with water quality as it is a man-made lake. This water and groundwater is our drinking water. When there is a large development, groundwater and surrounding lakes, creeks, and rivers are affected by E. coli, microcystin, runoff issues, and more. I believe this reckless development will put pressure on an already fragile ecosystem. The wildlife of Saylorville area and its citizens will suffer from deciding to overdevelop this area with high-density housing. Development and crowding are not unique to our situation, but there is a concern that the Saylorville recreational area will be loved to death. The land, water, and recreational resources of Saylorville Lake will be managed to be protected. This was in the original Saylorville Lake Master Plan. That's what they said, that the land, water, and recreational resources surrounding Saylorville Lake will be managed to protect, conserve, and sustain natural resources, especially environmentally sensitive resources, and to provide recreational opportunities that complement project resources for the benefit of the present and future generations. This proposed development is not cohesive with this statement and will not protect, conserve, or sustain the natural resources of this beautiful area. This is my main concern for this project. I also would like to say that the row houses that he was speaking of are those rental properties. And I believe I've seen them for sale, so I do not believe that the row houses that was spoke of, that those are rental homes. There is proven statistics that there is more pride in the ownership of something that you have purchased, not something that you are renting out. And I do believe that Polk City needs to take into consideration our thoughts and our opinions. I do feel like every voice should matter. And I guess I do have a question. Has Polk City been slated to receive federal funding for putting high-density housing in this location? That's my question.
Thank you for your question. Perhaps that can be answered when we have other presenters later. I understand the developer is going to speak. Perhaps he has an answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Sure, come on. Oh, you're coming back.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up.
Is this a follow-up on a new topic?
It's follow-up from some of the other speakers and my question originally. So it'll be very brief. Margaret Spikes, 9746 Northwest 47th Court, Polk City. My question to the council is there is there a study that's going to be done on 415? We've heard that come up a number of times. It reminded me of the fact that, so I live in the Ballard Estates neighborhood. If I want to go for a walk in the neighborhood just across from me for the Ankeny area, I have to drive over there because it's not safe enough to cross 415. Unfortunately, it would be short enough that I could walk across, but I can't because it's not safe enough. So because of the other comments that I've heard, my question is there a proposal that's out there to fix 415? Because my additional comment would be, if 415 is the bigger problem, then let's get it fixed before we try and do the development. So,
Thank you very much. Travis, maybe you be able to comment. I think you already did. Well, you have to comment now. You just put that on your list, okay? Your list of 2 things so far. Is there anybody else who has a comment to make?
Craig Havens, 4325 Northwest 102nd Place, Polk City, just outside the city limits. I've heard the engineer speak. Has anybody done an economic survey on this as far as bringing your sewer and your sanitary and storm sewer out there to that property. There's 26 acres. Is it economically feasible for the city to pay to bring all that out there and then, and justify the cost that the rest of the city of Polk City will have to pay for because it's non-expandable? It's surrounded already. You're not gonna grow it any more than what's already being developed. So I was just kind of curious if anybody's done a study, so that way the people of Polk City can see what they're paying for if it's, practical. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Randy Hochbergen, 10297 Northwest 40th Street, Polk City. So I guess we're not really opposed to development of any sort along there. We know that things, kind of in that area are going to get developed. I think a lot of people's main concerns is traffic. 415 in that area is already maxed out. We have talked to Polk County Public Works. They've told us they don't have a solution for the traffic issues that are on 415. Coming off of 44th Street, when you're coming south and trying to turn on there, is a road that a lot of people use to access 415 there, and you're accessing a north-south road onto the center of that curve without a great amount of visibility to the west there. If we start adding more and more cars to that situation there, I think somebody mentioned it before, just up the road, there was a traffic accident with a few deaths earlier this month. Just last week, we had one right out in front of the development. Someone had mentioned that the sign was a distraction. How about 300 or 400, 600 more cars coming in and out of there? It's going to be a disaster. I do really think that a solution for 415, for the entrance and exits out of this, I do think if you look into it and you look into it honestly, you'll see that there's, I can't believe there would be a solution there traffic-wise for something high density. Something similar to the rest of the lots that are around there, when you're adding 10 or 20 vehicles coming out of there on some lower density lots. I believe that's probably feasible, but hundreds of cars coming in and out of there. The second traffic point that I want to make on there is currently right now, our little residential street coming out of North Bay right into this section, this area that we're talking about, is the only access from that portion of Ankeny. 36th Street is gravel when it comes across. 8 people that come out of 18th Street and that are headed to Polk City. 18th Street isn't finished yet. And so there's a small little blacktop patch that attaches us to the Ankeny development. And people are using that to access into our development, to go out to 415, to go to Polk City or to go to the campgrounds and all that kind of things, which is great. We want to promote that kind of thing, but we don't have sidewalks in our area. We've got lots of small kids. The sheriff's department did come out and put a speed limit sign out to start slowing down people, but I have personally witnessed multiple times in a day, multiple times in a week, people doing 35, 40, 45 miles an hour down that short stretch with no sidewalk. I mean, little people on their bikes and stuff with no way of getting out of the way, and they just fly through there, and they're trying to access this area. We start putting that many more people. Somebody mentioned that it's going to be Ankeny schools. So to access Abbey Grove, which is the closest elementary school, from that development, you'd be sending people right through our development to get there. So I do believe that the only solution is to look at traffic. 18th Street's not done yet. 415, that curve right there, and where it meets 44th Street, and all of basically this entire area is not ready for that kind of traffic. Like I said, we've had accidents, we've had deaths in the area. I think, and you'll have to check me on this, but I think we've had 3 deaths just since May just a few miles north of there. These people that are gonna be living in there in high-density houses and so on, they're gonna be going right up to north, they're gonna be going right up 44th Street, up to Ames and so on. So again, I'm not at all opposed to expanding Polk City. This is just not the place, in my opinion, to do it in high density. I think you'll find that if you do an honest traffic study on it, that the solution for 415 is gonna be way too expensive and way too involved to make a safe solution there. The other thing, if we approve the rezoning now and they go through with their development plans, and then later you come up with a solution for that area, how do we know they're not gonna need some of that land, and how do we know how things are gonna change? 415 has incrementally changed over the years as development goes on up there. You can just look back on Google Earth and you find multiple changes. What hasn't changed is this corner yet. They've put in 90-degree corners, they've put in stoplights.
5 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Come forward.
I'd like to give my comments.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak? Sure, come forward.
Hello, my name's Nathan Fow. I live at 1041 Cardinal Drive, Polk City, Iowa, proper. I'm in support of the rezoning. I believe Polk City needs more commercial lots, hopefully with helping bring more taxes into town. I, for one, love the new Ace Hardware in town. I love Arcadia, everything that's coming in. And I think this is a great opportunity for Polk City to expand. I'm also for the residential rezoning there with the, I don't even think it's technically high density, but it's gonna give more opportunities for people to enjoy our community, our lakes that are nearby, our trails that I absolutely love and use every day. And then it's just 415, we know it's been brought up. It's a mess, it's busy. This wasn't brought up when all these single-family homes are being built year after year after year. Sometimes to have change happen, we need changes to happen. So maybe this proposal goes through and maybe the DOT comes through, and now we know how to get involved. We can come to meetings, we can contact DOT, how to get things changed, how to get 415 better. I don't think this residential should be scrapped because of the 415 issues, because right now it's an issue. So let's lead the change somewhere else to get that fixed, because we shouldn't, not expand Polk City and bring more people to try to enjoy our community and live here. I personally probably couldn't even move to Polk City anymore, because I moved here in 2017, paid what, $250,000, $300,000 for a house. Now, if I look here, I'm probably going to, Slater or somewhere else, because I can't come here and live and pay for a $500,000 house. And then we're trying to get more commercial here, where we want people to live here too. So like this lower cost of living, and we can have more people working and living in our community. I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to expand, and hopefully that we continue on the road. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? I'm not seeing any hands going up, so we're going to move on. We have a presentation from the developer.
I'll get started. She's getting the screen up there. John Larson, 10585 Canterbury Place in Johnston, Iowa. I'm one of the developers that's looking into developing this property. I'm going to address quite a few of the concerns that have been brought up. The first one is traffic, and everyone agrees I think there is a traffic issue. And sometimes when there's a problem, you got to figure out a solution. And let me explain how it works. When we get rezoned, then we submit a plat. And with that plat, we're asked to do a traffic study. Whereas a civil engineer like Snyder or Bolton and Mink will come into, I think I have this on I do a traffic study of the current study or the current traffic that goes through there now and what the proposed traffic is going to be. not only with this development or what's expected to come. And they'll come back to us and make some recommendations as far as what is needing as a traffic calming device. That could be stop signs, it could be stop lights, it could be a turn lane, it could be a roundabout. We're not sure exactly what they would come up with. And at that point, the developers, myself and Dean, would work with the city of Ankeny, Polk County, and the city of Polk City, because all in that area, it's all three governing bodies. So we'd come up with a solution, what's gonna work best. So we understand there's gonna be a problem. We just gotta come up with a good solution for this. Environment concerns. We've heard a little bit about this. When we do a plat or any new development, we have a retention area or detention area. So we look at what's called the 100-year, we do a hydraulic study, and we look at the 100-year flood. We make sure the buildings are gonna be placed above that. And then we also, in that detention area, we have to look at what's called the 5-year pre-development flow and also meet the requirements of the city. So we actually retain the water on the site. If there's any silt runoff or anything that goes in, it goes into this detention area. The idea is for the dirt to filter to the bottom, and then when the clean water goes out the top. We take this a step further in a lot of our developments where we have apartments, and we'll recycle the water with a pump and run the water out of the detention area through the irrigation. So a lot of the concerns about the water, we're gonna maintain how the water leaves the site now better than what it's leaving now. City growth, I think the city is on board for commercial. Some people said, why do we need commercial out there? I think there's a need for restaurants. I think there's a need for other entities, some kind of entertainment. Not sure what that's gonna be, another smash park, something like that. But we do have other restaurants interested in this. Apartments and people drive commercial growth. The more rooftops, the more density we have with people, the quicker the commercial growth is gonna be seen. A little bit about myself. Here are some pictures of some other apartment projects we built. Grimes, Bondurant, Norwalk. I currently have some under construction in Waukee, West Des Moines. Some interior pictures, some townhouses. A few other things I want to touch on. Who are the people that will live here? Young professionals. We also have quite a few retired people that are tired of maintaining a house, want to live maintenance free. Middle income families, I think a lot of people have touched on that tonight, where there's a big need for middle income or people that are just starting out. Someone asked if we were getting government funding. No, we're not. I think it was you. There's no tax dollars involved in this. These are market rate apartments. They're not Section 8. They're not income assisted. They're market rate apartments. I think it bodes well for the workforce development. I think some people touched on that a lot of people that are maybe not the higher wage earners in town cannot afford to live in town. And I think we'll fill the need. One other thing I want to touch on with the traffic. I know if you look at the comprehensive plan for Ankeny, and Travis, maybe you can help me out on this, but I think 18th Street is skated to come through all the way to 415 in 2027, which is definitely going to help out the traffic flow through like North Bay. I think eventually you won't be able to access 415 from North Bay. You'll have to go out through the east end. So I think a lot of that, if you control the traffic entering onto 415, is going to help. I'm open for any questions if anybody has any.
Here's your opportunity to ask any questions of the developer. Go ahead. There's one behind you, John.
Sorry. How much are these gonna be rented out for?
We have a diverse.
John, can you use the microphone,
Yep,
please?
we have a diverse portfolio there. It'll be from studios up to 3 bedrooms. They'll range from $950 up to $2,500. We are planning a clubhouse, which will have a pool and all recreational facilities, including a weight room, ping pong tables, pool tables, all the amenities that come with a apartment complex.
John, start to finish, how long do you think it'll take the project to be completed?
Can you repeat?
His question is the timing of the construction and length. This will probably get started hopefully next spring. and it'll take about 1.5 to 2 years to complete everything.
So it's possible 18 could be done by the time you guys are done.
20, I'm sorry, what
It's
could be?
possible 18 could be done by the time you guys are done.
Yes, yep. This will be done in progress. We won't do all the buildings at once. We plan to do it in stages.
Construction for that, according to the Yankees city improvement plan, is 28, 29.
28, 29?
They have seed money for survey and everything starting in that 27, but construction isn't until like slated for 28 at the soonest.
Okay.
Okay. That was really an observation rather than a question. Are there any other questions?
I have a question, and
Yeah.
this might not.
Is it up to John?
Yes, it is to him. So I'm just curious because with the development around our area in the Ballard Estates, our well water quality has gone down. How does you guys building affect our wells? Because we know that there's chemicals that are being used and the water, it's the ground, you know, like the drainage systems and everything all interact. So I'm just curious because none of us are connected to city water. How are those chemicals used on the foundation? And I know you have a good runoff plan, but it still seeps into the ground. So I'm just curious on how that affects well water.
I guess I'm not sure what chemicals we'd use on a foundation.
Like, because the coatings, the water.
No, these are all slab on grade. There won't be basements.
Okay.
So there's no coatings.
That's just my concern is that we don't have city water out
Is
there.
there a water evaluation for well water, how it would affect well water quality?
No,
Groundwater
no.
quality?
We haven't done an environmental study. Nope, that all comes with a site plan.
I'm just asking because for us to hook up to city water,
Yep.
it's 15,000 to 20,000 out there. So I'm just concerned about our drinking water.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
so really, we're getting off topic because this is really rezoning that we're talking about here. So thank you for your comments, and we'll just move forward with the rest of our meeting. Travis, I think there were a couple of things that you were going to address, and I think we'll let you do that before we move on.
So as it comes to sanitary sewer service, I think this is, particularly for the newer council members, I think this is a good opportunity to explain how Polk City gets their sewer service and how some of those agreements and those facilities work. So the city of Polk City is a member of the WRA with the Wastewater Reclamation Authority. Why did I pick a word I couldn't say? And essentially, as a member institution, the city of Polk City cannot provide sewer service to anybody who is not in their corporate limits. That's a manner by which the WRA controls and can forecast the amount of service that they're going to have to provide, the amount of sewage they're able to handle, and how to plan their resources accordingly. As some of the longer tenured council members may know, and the new ones may as well, Big Creek State Park is in the Polk City corporate limits for that specific reason. The DNR had to do major improvements to their sewage system, and it became financially infeasible to do anything but join the WRA. And so Big Creek State Park is part of the city of Polk City for the specific reason of sanitary sewer service. For this, that's the background of sewer service in Polk City. For this property in particular, the master meter for the WRA is located near the intersection of Highway 415 and Northwest 44th Street. It then is pumped via force main up to the corner of Southeast 14th and East Southside Drive. So east side of the barrier dam, there is a lift station that pumps almost all of Polk City's sewage out of town. As part of a development located just north of this property called Antler Ridge that John happens to be developing as well, he is installing 2 segments of sanitary trunk sewer that pick up near a stub just off of the lift station and will continue to the south. At the conclusion of Antler Ridge Plat 3 that this council just approved construction drawings for in the last month, that sanitary sewer will be to the south property line of the Antler Ridge subdivision and will be less than 500 feet from the Highway 415. The developer's engineer on Antler Ridge has coordinated with the Army Corps of Engineers and the Iowa DOT to gain permission and preliminary approval of boring a gravity-fed sanitary sewer main through the dam located just north of Highway 415. And they are on board with that approach. We will need the developer will have to gain final approval before that construction can take place, but they have preliminary approval of the concept in what is being proposed. From there, the developer would then, or the city, depending on the timing of the project, would then stub a street under Highway 415 via trenchless construction. So you would bore that sanitary sewer under Highway 415 and place a manhole just south of Highway 415. From there, it would be the property owner's responsibility to tap into that existing manhole and extend it to their property. Polk City Municipal Code would then require any developer who is extending sanitary or water main to extend it to their plat boundary in a manner that can serve the remaining service area that Polk City is required to service. As part of this discussion, there is also a 28E agreement that specifically delineates what the city of Ankeny will provide service for in the future and what the city of Polk City will provide in the future. That line is not completely northwest of 44th Street, but for the effective purposes of this conversation, to give you an idea of where that boundary lies, west of 44th is Polk City's responsibility, east is the city of Ankeny's. That would be the same boundary that would be established for water main, as well as any other services that the city would provide. And that is all the further that Polk City can currently push. That agreement does have a set expiration date, but at this time, we don't anticipate that being a problem, as we anticipate that being renewed in the future. I believe the 2080 agreement is a 10-year agreement, and I don't know the expiration, but we're only a few years into that agreement. As far as the only other utility I haven't talked about, storm sewer, typically on developments or portions of cities that have major existing infrastructure barriers, those storm sewer systems are isolated. So we do not need to contend with crossing Highway 415 for discharging stormwater. Iowa drainage law actually requires any redevelopment of a land to mirror the outflows, both in general characteristics and intensities, to downstream property owners. So the stormwater that exists today, the intensities and the discharge points may change slightly, but generally speaking, it would follow the general drainage path that exists on that parcel today. As far as the traffic impact study and the timing of all of those items, since the continuation of this public hearing was voted on by this council, city staff has been in coordination with the Iowa DOT regarding several projects, including Highway 415. That will be the conversation regarding Highway 415 is going to have to be a comprehensive discussion that likely involves at least 3, but probably 4 governmental agencies in the city of Ankeny, the city of Polk City, the Polk County, and the Iowa DOT, as Highway 415 is a state highway. All 4 of those entities will have to be involved, and as John mentioned, the findings of that traffic impact study will be discussed at that meeting in that coordination, and we will have a comprehensive look at how Highway 415 can be improved, because every governmental agency acknowledges that there is a problem and that they've needed that impetus to push change forward and improvement forward. I think that was everything that council. Does council have any other questions for me prior to considering a vote?
Thank you, Travis. So at this time, we need a motion to close the public hearing and reopen the regular meeting. We will not be taking action on this item until after public hearing for B. So a motion, please, and a second?
So moved. Second.
And roll call?
Walters?
Yes.
Vogel? Yes. Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
So we're now going to move on to item 4B. It's time to close the regular meeting and open the public meeting on amending the 2016 Polk City Comprehensive Plan by updating the future land use plan. Jenny, when was the notice published?
August 30th.
Have we had any written comments received for or against the proposed comp plan amendment?
No, sir.
At this time, I'd like to request staff to provide a report.
So for council's consideration tonight is a comprehensive plan amendment that does not change the intent of this property, but simply changes the shapes shown on the future land use plan to match those of the proposed rezoning. The general intent of this property as of 2022 was for a mixture of commercial and high-density residential. This comprehensive plan does not impact that intent. It simply changes and modifies the shapes to match what is being proposed.
Thank you, Travis. So we're going to move on then. Any comments received for the Allure at Saylorville rezoning public hearing will be made part of the public record for the comprehensive plan public hearing. So we do not need anyone to come up and duplicate comments on that. I'll ask if there's anyone present who wishes to be heard for or against this amendment. Seeing no hands, I need a motion to close the public hearing and reopen the regular meeting.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
I didn't hear who had the second.
Nick.
Otis,
Yes.
Sarchet,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
Vogel.
Yes.
We'll now proceed, moving on to 4B1, Resolution 2024-117, approving amendment to the 2016 Polk City Comprehensive Plan by updating the future land use plan. So I will need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Walters.
So, but before we go into the vote.
Sure, yes.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack here. I'm a no for both the plan changes and the rezoning for a few different reasons, some of which that were outlined I do get leery with, but obviously there's a lot of questions about the process and continue to encourage people to get involved. But nonetheless, I do think, as I've learned, we've got a developer who's engaged in the area. A lot of times we get purchases of developable land predicated on this rezoning. It's not the case here. So I think before we vote, we've got a real opportunity, since we do have a developer who's purchased the land full stop, to work with them in a way that we've not done to this point. Because personally, I would like to see less dense and a little bit more mixed use or more commercial here. But doing that in a methodical way rather than the proposal that we've got here, because I know we referenced some changes that we made in 22, but those were amongst other changes that at that point, the development here wasn't as palatable as it was after the Antler Ridge went through. So I really think that we need to proceed cautiously here, figure out the best long-term approach. And I'm dubious of the logic behind if you build the people part first, the commercial base comes. My challenge to that would be where? We do not have, the reason that we've grown like we've grown is because we've got land next to parks, we've got land next to hills that quite honestly couldn't have been developed any other way than single family homes. They don't have access to roads, they don't have access to the traffic needs that most businesses do, and this spot does. And I genuinely believe that if the spirit of what has been discussed here, whether you're inside or outside of the borders, is a genuine thing, through a few meetings, we can get to something that's amenable to all sides. This land is going to develop. So the proxy of, we gotta take this plan which wasn't explicitly stated, but the proxy of it's this plan or nothing isn't on the table for me. If we've got a developer that's got a track record, let's work with them to find a solution that meets our needs, which in my opinion, it needs to be addressed on the commercial side more than the residential side. And with this development only having a little under 20% or 25% commercial development, we are missing out on a huge opportunity. And so seeing how those discussions might go is a big step. And then I'll be honest with the other part. This is my third term. I've not had the volume of feedback and the consistency with which that feedback comes in that we've had here. So our job is to be representative of the people and to push back only when absolutely necessary, but otherwise vote according to what the folks want. And other than a very slim minority, I've not heard much for this. So for those reasons, and again, I just cannot emphasize the opportunity cost here. We're starting a process that will be real hard to unravel if we rezone it this way. The appetite to rezone it with other things, whether that's decreasing the density or adding commercial, are gonna be really tough to do. So that's why I'm a no here.
Anyone else on the council? All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's call the roll.
Walters?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
No.
Savage?
Yes.
All right then. Moving on to item 4B2. I need a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-1700, approving rezoning petition for a lure at Saylorville from A1 to C2, R3, and R2A. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any comment from council?
Yes, if I may. Mr. Mayor, may I ask Mr. Larson a couple questions?
A couple of questions, yes.
Mr. Larson?
John, can you come forward?
So Mr. Larson, unlike Mr. Sarchet, this isn't my third term. I'm a freshman, so I'm 8 months in, and I don't have any background in this, right? I was just someone that lived in our city that wanted to run to help make a difference. I do have a few questions I would like to just have you clarify for my understanding. First of all, I know you talked about Section 8 and stuff like that. The intent is not to be government funded or Section 8. Help me understand the criteria for something that could potentially turn into, I don't know, I'm not a subject matter expert. Is there any possibility that this could turn into a Section 8 property?
Not that I'm aware of. If there was some reason that we would not develop it, which is not our plan, we plan to start soon. I guess someone else could come in and do that. I think it takes quite a bit of government work to do. I've never done anything like that. There are some people in town that specialize in that. I've just chosen not to go that route. So as of right now, I would say no, as far as I'm concerned.
And again, based on what you said from what you're able to get from this, you're targeting roughly like $1,000. I mean, again, your demographic that you target is like young professionals, families starting out.
You think that, but you go through our other apartment buildings, you're pleasantly surprised. There's a lot of people that move out of their homes, that move into an apartment just because they don't want the maintenance of a regular house. So here we've got 32 townhomes that are 2,500 square feet or 1,500 square feet that'll rent for $2,300 to $2,500. That comes with a 2-car attached garage. So we've got a wide variety that we'll cover. So we have studios all the way up to 3-bedroom, 2-car attached rentals in this.
And then I guess my last question is obviously you got the mixture between the townhomes, the apartments, and the commercial. Help me understand when you start to build this, what starts to fill up first?
I think the townhomes will fill up relatively quick. And then in our mixture, we have a 30-plex, which contains 24 1-bedrooms and 6 studios. And in our other complexes, usually those are filled up rather quickly. I always joke before the paint's dry, but usually there's a waiting list for people to come in. It seems like a lot of people do not want to live with others if they're single and they go with the studio and 1-bedrooms. We've also found in the last 2 or 3 years that the 2-bedrooms have becoming more popular again, just because a lot of people work from home and they may have their bedroom and then office in another room. So I don't know, I wish I knew the statistics right in my head in our other complexes, which are families as opposed to just young professionals, unmarried or newly married. I don't have the statistics right now to give to you.
Okay, thank you.
That it, Jeff?
Yes.
Thank you, John.
Any other question?
Anything else from any other council member before we move on? All right, then. We've had a motion and a second.
I do want to read a statement if I can. First of all, I do appreciate everybody's comments. They're not lost on me. But like I said, I'm a human too, and I listen to everything that everybody has to say, even if you live directly in our city limits or not. I have spent a crazy amount of time on this decision, and for those that know me or those that I have talked to over the past several weeks, can attest to that. So hopefully you can believe that I'm sincere when I'm saying I don't take this decision relatively lightly. I do want to say though, after thoughtful consideration, I have decided to vote yes on the rezoning. My decision aligns with my commitment to expanding diverse housing options and encouraging commercial growth, as I promised when I ran for office last year. I do want to say, however, my vote today does not signify support for the current concept plan, and I am in firm belief that any development must address any valid concerns of our residents, regardless of aesthetics, traffic, environmental impact, as well as the integration of green spaces. I do urge our staff to work closely with the developers to consider options that truly reflect our community's values and aspirations. I do believe my vote represents a step forward, but calls for continued dialogue and refinement to ensure that we create spaces that benefit everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right.
I do need to disclose that I had a couple conversations on this topic that happened outside of the public hearing. No new information was shared, and I do not believe that it affects my partiality on any of this.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Let's go ahead and let's call the roll.
Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
No.
Savage?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Vogel? Yes.
Motion carries. We will now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Yeah.
Whoa, there's our monitor.
Jenny, close the TV.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay, those that are a public hearing, if you wish to speak, you should have contacted the city clerk by 6 p.m. Prior to our meeting. Let's see, Jenny, do we have anybody who left cards?
Yes, sir. We have two people. Laramie Sandquist was first.
Laramie?
Thank you again. Laramie Sandquist, 1101 Tradition Drive. Talking about the UTV ordinance. I won't share the same things I shared last time. I know this is the second reading of the ordinance. Last time I talked about the safety of the ordinance. I did want to clarify some of the comments that were made after I was able to speak, since I was one of the first ones there. There were comments made that there were no deaths due to UTVs in the state of Iowa, which is incorrect. I supplied you guys with information that specifically says there are 16 deaths actually this year, as of this morning. And as you see from the statistics, that is over a 25% increase over the entire 2023 timeframe. We are on track in 2024 to hit 24 deaths if it continues on the same trajectory, which would be double the amount of deaths that there were last year. And I don't want to talk about 2021 and 2020 because we know those were COVID years and they're probably distorted. But back in 2019, for comparables, there were only 7 deaths in the state of Iowa. So we were looking at 3.5 times as many deaths in the state of Iowa due to UTVs and ATVs on our roadways. I know this is a UTV, but unfortunately, the Department of Transportation does not break out UTV versus ATV. Also talked about the way I understand the
Hang on a second.
ordinance.
You said 24 in 24, but it says 16.
It's 16 as of today. So if you take that out to the end of 24 at the same pace, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if we project out, we could be at 24 by the end of the year. There are 16 as of this morning through basically September, or the first part of September. Yep. Good clarification. Thank you, Rob. We'd also talked about, we had feedback from folks wanting to be able to drive these in and out of our city. The way I understand the ordinance, there's only one way to get in and out of the city, and that's out 3rd Street past Hug Drive. Because the ordinance states that anywhere else in any 35-mile-an-hour zone, you can drive it. But the moment it leaves a 35-mile-an-hour zone, you cannot drive it. So there's clear confusion by the community on what they can and cannot use these vehicles for. But there was one thing missing from a lot of their discussion. And what was missing was the fact of what this ordinance actually covers. And that's the use of it in the city. Very few people talked about the use of taking it down to the Quick Star, or taking it down to the athletic complex, or taking it down to the square and grabbing some breakfast and things like that. I think we all know that folks intend to use these to drive them outside the city limits and at potentially speeds higher than 35 miles an hour. So let's take a look at the ordinance itself. The ordinance itself has it's very well written, but it also has some very confusing pieces in them. In confusion, I will point out a couple different things. So it's in 35-mile-an-hour zones only. So those folks that are up in the Lost Lakes and Prairie Ridge area, if they want to get to Big Creek, the only way for them to get to Big Creek, the way I can see it, based off the ordinance, is for them to go down Broadway to 3rd Street, out past the roundabout, up to Hug Drive, out Hug Drive into Big Creek. Really, the only way anyone can get to Big Creek is to go out Hug Drive. That's a problem. Those in the Marina Cove, Southside Drive area, the only way for them to get back into the city or to get over to the new development area, as we pointed out last time, we have very few areas where there's commercial development, but if we look at the Casey's and the Quick Star and places like that, the only way they can get back is to be going back through, what is the street? Grimes. You gotta go back to Grimes in order to get back and go to those new restaurants that we have over there. Confusing. If we go off 118th Street, the access to the new sports complex, if it gets voted in, would be in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. You would not be able to access the sports complex from this ordinance, nor would you be able to access the new developments that are off 118th Street as well. And so as you can see, there are several things. The gun range, would not be able to access the gun range, would not be able to access anything outside of 35-mile-an-hour zone, can't go across the mile-long bridge, you get the point. So needless to say, when the state allowed cities and counties to put together their own individual ordinance, they relied on us, the city members, to make good decisions on our individual circumstances as to whether this makes sense. I think we can all agree that we have a lot of unique things in our community that make this an unattractive option for us. The other thing that was brought up is just some other things. I noticed in here we talk about noise, right? So I did some studies on noise. You guys probably hear these things, and you know that these things get noisy. The average UTV has anywhere between 90 and 100 decibels when riding at wide open throttle. Most UTVs will max out at 40 to 45 miles an hour. Well, I know there are some high performance that will go upwards of 60 and 70 miles an hour. Most commercial use UTVs will go 40 to 45 miles an hour. So most people will be driving these at close to wide open throttle if they're driving at 35 miles an hour. And I would ask you, have you driven a UTV on a public road at 35 miles an hour? Have you driven a UTV that maxes out at 40 miles an hour at 35 miles an hour? Do you understand how these handle? We have UTVs. I understand how they drive. I understand how they handle. That's why I'm vehemently opposed to this, because I understand how that works. If you don't have that, I think the city does have a UTV that maybe you can go out and take a ride in that at 35 miles an hour on our city streets. So cars have about a 70 to decibel level. Large trucks are about 80. Helicopters at 95 to 100. Trains are at 90 to 95. These will be loud. They will be driven at wide open throttle. You will get complaints from folks. So while I understand the chapter, 52 of the ordinance, and it's a 86 decibel reading at 50 feet and whatnot, most people aren't going to understand that. They're going to hear wide open throttle UTVs driving around town, making the loudest noise with both their tires and the engines. And the last thing is, I know you guys are getting feedback from folks around the community. I also involved a lot in the community, and I did an informal survey. I won't name any names, but informal survey, talked to some friends, talked to some colleagues, talked to some others. And I just asked them their thoughts on this. And I can tell you the overwhelming theme is why? What problem are we trying to solve here? Why do we need this ordinance? Who's asking for this? And what problems in this community does having this ordinance solve? Because clearly, some will say, why not? We heard that. Why not? It's not that bad. They're not as bad as bicycles. Well, read the death stats. They're actually worse than bicycles. They're not as bad as scooters. They're not as bad as other things. When you get the bicycles off the road, which you want to do, when you get the scooters off the road like you want to do, when you get all the other bad things off the road like you want to do, these will be the bad. They'll simply be bad. And so based on that, we talked about safety last week. We talked about the confusion this week. We talked about the noise. We talked about the Iowa traffic fatality statistics that continue to go up year after year after year. I would ask you to reconsider your vote on this moving forward, because the statistics are not lying. This is getting worse and will continue to get worse as we normalize these non-road bearing vehicles on public roads. The numbers will not go down. They will go up. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. I believe we had somebody else who wanted to speak.
Bill McBee.
Mayor, council, this is Bill McBee, 500 East Madison Drive. Staff, thanks for letting the Door Frank neighbors and the citizens express their concerns and opinions tonight. I have a petition here with 97% of the citizens in our neighborhood opposing the changing of the current zoning law to allow subdivisions in Door Frank plots. This developer wants to add another home on the same plot so he may have more rental income. In doing this, it will change the dynamics, the aesthetics of our neighborhood, which these tenants nor the landlord have no ownership the well-being of Door Frank Acres. We've had many issues with a tenant in the past of this landlord at another one of his properties on our street. This is a family neighborhood that we all worked hard to achieve. We moved out there for the rural feel, larger lots, and the community togetherness. If this developer is allowed to change the law, what is going to stop like developers or residents to also subdivide larger lots, not only in our neighborhood, but the entire city? The citizens of Door Frank, this city, pleads to the council to be democratic and vote for the majority rather than put one person's financial interest into considerations. Thanks again for hearing your community. And I have the petition here if you would like to have it.
You can present it.
Present it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So what I would just tell you is that we'll take your petition, the council will take your petition under advisement, so thank you very much. No one else, no other public comments? Is there anyone who didn't fill out the card who would like to make a public comment? If you would, sure, go ahead.
I didn't fill out a card, should I?
I'm gonna let you speak.
This is also to address what Mr. McBee was referring to. I understand it's business item 7A. the preliminary plat for the Dorfrank Acres.
We need to get your name and address first,
I'm sorry,
ma'am.
yes. Kathy DeBruin, 300 East Madison Drive,
Okay, thank
Polk
you.
City. In preparing for this comment tonight, I was looking online, and I see there was included a document prepared by Mr. Thornburg from Snyder Associates, and if I could just quote one line from this. It says, according to chapter 165.09-9, single-family lots previously platted in a subdivision of similarly sized single-family residential lots shall not be further subdivided or split by plat or survey. There is a line that he has inserted after this, since the subject lot was previously platted as part of Dorfrank Acres Plat 1 and is similarly sized to those around it, the property owner has been required to prepare a minor plat of subdivision. My question on this would be, according to the chapter, the authoritative chapter, there's no wiggle room in there. It says shall not be further subdivided. So how is this lot being further subdivided is my question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing no one else, we will move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is consent items, and I'll ask for a motion and a second, please.
So moved. Second.
And call the roll.
Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Vogel? Yes.
So we'll move on to item 7A, Resolution 2024-112, approving preliminary and final plat for Dorfrank Acres Plat 3. Travis, do you have anything?
For council's consideration tonight is a minor plat of subdivision for the Dorfrank Acres Plat 3. As part of this transaction, the council will be considering both the approval of the preliminary plat and the final plat, as there are no public improvements required for the splitting of this lot. As previously mentioned, chapter 165.09-9 strictly prohibits the split of a previously platted lot in a subdivision by plat of survey. Plat of survey is an instrument by which the city council cannot enforce their subdivision regulations and ordinances. The minor plat of subdivision then is a step above. It requires additional title and legal work, as well as makes the subdivision subject to the requirements of the subdivision regulations, so your chapter 170. The proposed lot split would take a 1.33 acre lot with a current frontage of 210 and split it into two lots, one with a frontage of 120 and change, and then one of 90 feet. For context for council's consideration, the smallest lots in the Dorfrank Plat 1 original plat were 135 feet. Sometime before homes were built, those lots were subdivided via deed, we believe sometime in the 1970s. So those were not platted lots, they were deeded lots. And there are homes near the intersection of 6th Street and East Madison Drive that result in about 100 foot of frontage. So that kind of gives you some context for the lot widths that are being proposed. One of these will be the smallest lot in the subdivision, with one being slightly larger than some of the smaller lots in the subdivision. We have had the developer's engineer evaluate the stormwater on this lot. The existing drainage easement was not sized appropriately for the drainage swale that exists there. So as part of this transaction, the developer would place a modern overland flowage easement that meets the city's modern standards, clarifies the maintenance of that drainage facility, and contains the entirety of that drainage facility within its boundaries. The preliminary plat and final plat is included in the council packet, address all of staff's comments. And Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval of this. Subject to, or they did, also approve the developer's request to waive detention for this plat of subdivision. Be happy to answer any questions, provide additional context, and the developer.
I've got a question. You said that's gonna be the smallest lot in the subdivision, because the individual that just spoke back there, his lot is 20,723 square foot.
By
My
width.
smallest lot is 27,000.
Okay.
By width, okay.
So that is a clarification. By width, it would be the smallest lot. It will not be the smallest lot by area.
So yes, there's already, and then, yes, that's the picture.
Okay, thank you, Travis. All right then, we'll move on then, on,
I think the developer would like to.
oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
Good evening, Shane Devick, CEC, 2400 86th Street in Urbandale. I just wanted to address the comments. There's been reference to not being able to split lots on this plat. And the original plat, I got online right before the meeting, I see 14 lots that have been changed since the original plat. So that the precedence has been set for that, you know, you can change these lots. The other thing is, this would be the only lot, and Travis can correct me, that this would be able to be done with. This would be the last one, besides all the others that have been done. I don't see how you could split any other lot besides this one. It's got the width and it's got the room on the side, so. I just wanted to add those points.
So can you state that again? So you're stating that there's evidence that there was, how many lots that have been previously split?
14?
14?
There's 14 lots on the plat that are not the same width as was originally platted.
So there were 14
Narrowed.
lots that were split. The original plat was then 14, and now it's,
Well, I don't know if I can show you. All I've got is X's on it. Do you have a camera? No.
Not that kind.
No, sorry. Not that fancy yet.
And I don't know. Can I just bring this up to you?
Pass it around, yeah, if that's okay.
There's, the X's are the lots that have been narrowed since the original plan.
Do you know those addresses?
I don't have
They're on
them.
there.
They're on there, yeah.
And again, when you say, as we pass this around, when you say that the original plat, right, was 1967. Is that correct? Again, this is not my day job, so if I misspeak, I apologize.
Here's the original plat.
Okay.
And they were 135. And then all the X's have been narrowed.
So while that's going around, I guess, was there anything else?
No, I just wanted to make the point that we're not doing something unusual for this neighborhood. It's something that's been many times before. And this would actually be the last lot that would be conducive to even considering this.
Yeah, so I wanted to, and do you want a motion first, or?
I was gonna say, I didn't know if you were asking him another question. If not, then let's have a motion in a second, and then we'll have council comment.
Okay.
Motion to approve resolution 2024-112.
Second.
Okay.
So what I was gonna say is, and I'll take some responsibility, this was on the agenda last time, and I probably wasn't as prepared as I should have been, and just wasn't comfortable moving ahead, and I don't know if that was the right thing to do or not, but out of deference to the neighborhood, I know there wasn't a recording on P and Z, so just wanted to clarify. From my perspective, I agree with a lot of the discussion that I was able to ascertain. Again, I don't have access to the recording either, but as this not being a precedent-setting move, I do see that this fits in with the neighborhood. I know most of the residences there are owned, but, and this would be a rental, which is a little bit of a change. But, the fact that it doesn't set precedent, and then just aesthetically driving it, this is an improvement, in my opinion. And I do think as much as we can do to leave neighborhoods like Door Frank alone, we should, and act cautiously. So see the precedent point that I was talking about, and I think over the last handful of years, we have done right by that neighborhood. If we didn't, there would be an apartment building behind Madison instead of a school. So I think this is the right move. I think when it's all said and done, it'll be an improvement.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, again, so tough night for decisions, right? So again, it's not lost on me the impact to the residents in the neighborhood, right? Again, the fact that there's precedent that, this is not something that's out of the ordinary. I did my due diligence and I just can't see how there's direct harm to the residents in that area. And to me, it just seems not fair to penalize one individual because of that. Back to the comments about, having a bad renter, right? That could happen anywhere. Someone could have bought the home and been a bad person, living there altogether. So, again, I can't see, no evidence has been brought to me that says this is directly harming those residents, so.
Thank you.
I don't have much to add either. I think most of the points have been made. It does seem to fit with the neighborhood. I wasn't aware that there was a precedent that this had already been split a bunch of times and rearranged in at least a couple of them. I think that actually makes the decision easier for me, so.
Okay, then, let's call the roll.
Savage,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes.
Sarchet.
Yes.
All right, moving on to item B, second reading of ordinance 2024-1800, amending provisions pertaining to fire officials' authority to cite violations. I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Let's ask for a roll call.
Vogel,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes.
Sarchet,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Item C, second reading of ordinance 2024-1900, amending provisions pertaining to pedestrians' right-of-way. Ask for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any comment? Call the roll.
Vogel,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes.
Sarchet,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Item D, second reading of ordinance 2024-2000, amending provisions pertaining to sidewalk liability. A motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Jenny, please call the roll.
Otis,
Yes.
Sarchet,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
Vogel.
Yes.
Second reading of ordinance 2024-2100, amending provisions in chapter 75 pertaining to all-terrain vehicles, off-road utility vehicles, also known as UTV, and snowmobiles. Motion and a second, please.
Move approval.
Second? Was that,
What did I didn't.
was that Rob?
We have a motion.
I just didn't hear.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
We need a second. If we're,
Second.
Yeah,
do we have a second?
Did you
I
second?
think I was supposed to be the
Okay.
second,
I think he said
guess.
second.
Sure.
Okay, Rob's first, your second.
You can be third. Perfect.
All right.
Discussion though, maybe.
Just a quick note on this one. I do think Laramie had a really good point about the speed limits towards the exits of town. I don't want to do anything about it right now, but it should be something that's on our radar. I think we either need to amend this in the future to figure out a way to get these in and out of town or lower our speed limits out to our borders. That's all I have.
I do have a couple comments too. So, first of all, I want to thank Laramie very much and Brandon as well. I haven't had a chance to thank you for your comments. I just want to let you know your comments are not lost, right? Like everything in life, you're able to counterpoint, things. I can sit at my house in my property and just hear Harleys just blasting, right, coming through town. We actually almost got hit by a group of Harleys the other day. I recently spent almost 2 weeks in South Dakota in the Black Hills where UTVs are allowed. I would kind of argue, I do have a UTV. I drove on pavement with a lot of other people. I could counterpoint, some of your information as well. But I do take the comments you made seriously. Again, it only takes one bad individual or one bad instance for this to get rescinded. You said, who's asking for this? Well, I had 20-some people easily reach out to me, and I've only had 2 people publicly or even privately tell me they weren't in favor of it. So it's one of those things. But again, I do want to thank you for your comments. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else? Let's call the roll then.
Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Walters?
No.
Vogel?
Yes.
Moving on to item F, Snyder and Associates Engineering Services invoice for July 2024 in the amount of $63,547.78. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Walters?
Abstain.
Vogel? Yes.
Item E, reports and particulars. Let's begin with staff. Yeah. Okay, to you. And then let's move on to Chelsea. Anything?
I don't have anything, thank you.
How about council members?
Yeah, I do have a couple things real quick. I know it's running late. Again, I want to echo something that we've talked about for a while. I'll just say it, the pandemic with scooters in our town. I witnessed almost for the 3rd time now over the weekend, a kid getting hit, no fault of the driver, on Broadway this weekend, not wearing any safety gear or anything like that. We need to, as a body and as a city, figure out how to get better safety education out there for individuals, where it's safe and not safe. I saw kids riding in parking lots this weekend. It's just, again, I cannot, I feel like we have way more scooters in town than we're gonna have UTVs, and I'm more concerned about those individuals. So again, I wanna keep it forward that we need to probably as a body figure out a way to get some sort of education out there. I know Mandy's spoken with Jeremy about it, but any sort of public events we have, we need to figure out how to communicate that to our residents. And that's it.
Thank you. Hearing nothing else from the council, I don't have anything to add either, so we'll move ahead to item 9, which is adjournment. I'll ask for a motion and then a second, please.
Sorry, second.